I have over 130 days playing Rainbow Six Siege over the last 8 years.
This is disgusting.
But let's be honest, the game is dying. But Rainbow Six Siege is still the best shooter game on the market, right guys? In this video, I'm going to be spending 1 month trying to find a shooter game that is better than Rainbow Six Siege. And let me tell you right now, this was an absolute grind of a challenge, but I think you guys are going to love it and be shocked by the results. So let's get started. It is day 1 and we need to quickly lay out the foundation for this challenge. The way we will constitute a game is better than Siege will be based on 3 main criteria, each scored on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, the addictiveness of the game. 2, the logistics of the game, so basically how well it runs, are the graphics good, are there connection issues, etc. And 3, the uniqueness of the game. Now obviously we have to rank Rainbow Six Siege on this criteria first to be able to determine if a game is better than it or not, and then we'll average the 3 scores out at the end to get an overall score. So first, the addictiveness, I'm gonna give it a 6. It probably used to be a 9 or 10, but nowadays it's easy to burn out, especially considering cheaters, and it wouldn't be Siege without bringing up cheaters at some point. Second, the logistics of the game, we're gonna give it a more than fair 8. I know Siege has some connection problems or glitches here and there, but for the most part, they always seem to figure it out, and it runs incredibly smooth for a decade-old game, even smoother than most other new games nowadays. Lastly, the uniqueness of the game, we are 100% giving it a big fat 10. I mean, the game has 70 plus operators, each with individual loadouts, abilities, and playstyles. I don't think it gets any more unique than that. So you average that out, we're looking at a score of 8, and that is the number to beat in the next 30 days, which is going to be tough, but I think we can do it. Let's install our first game. Marvel Rivals, baby. The game has been out a little more than a month at the time of recording this, and everyone has been flipping out about the game. Season 1 just started, and so we're going to give it a try. Now, I cannot lie. Rivals immediately caught my attention from the jump. It's exciting, it's fun, it's lighthearted, but is it better than Rainbow Six Siege? Barely, not quite good enough, absolute nail biter for the first game, but I spent the entirety of days 1 and 2 playing Rivals without even looking at a single other game. Over the course of this challenge, you'll see a few games that specifically captivate me and have me spend multiple days going back to playing, and this was definitely one of them. But that leaves me with slightly less time to find a game to beat out Rainbow Six Siege. So on day 3, I reluctantly scrolled past Marvel Rivals and opened up the next game, Valorant. Now I can't lie, Valorant took me a second to get down. I actually started out pretty frustrated, but by the end of day 3, I was really getting the hang of it and was finally understanding what all the hype was about. The issue is, it really didn't captivate me. I went to bed that night knowing that I was not going to be reopening Valorant the next day, and I would be moving on to a new game. So with that being said, I'm going to give the addictiveness of Valorant a 6. As for logistics, I'll give it a 9 because I didn't run into a single problem the whole time I played, and it felt very well polished. Lastly, for uniqueness, I'm going to give it a big stinking 3. Let's be honest, this game is basically Counter-Strike with an Overwatch fusion and aesthetic. I mean, it felt like I had already played the game 1,000 times before, and it really wasn't anything all that groundbreaking. It's certainly a winning formula, don't get me wrong, but sticking to a formula so strictly like Valorant does is going to get you uniqueness points deducted. This one isn't going to come close to an 8, but we'll still average it out anyway. Valorant is a 6. This next game I pick better be a banger. And a banger it was. On day 4, I downloaded the military simulation FPS game that's been absolutely blowing up recently, Arma Reforger. I love this game so much that while recording for this challenge, I also made a couple of separate videos on the game just a couple of weeks ago at the time of recording this voiceover. It just felt like the perfect change in pace from Siege. It was casual, it was massive lobbies and maps, complete chaos, but I'll let the gameplay show you why I loved Arma so much. Oh shoot, the helicopter's about to blow up. What is this guy doing? Oh my god! No way. Jesus.
Bro, what did I just witness?
Now, starting off with addictiveness, I'm going with a 9. Next, the logistics of the game, we have to give it a 4. I mean, it's a massive game with 128 player lobbies, so it's gonna have its problems such as crashes, frame drops, and missed hit registration, but we have to take this all in a vacuum to keep these ratings fair, so that doesn't give Arma any exceptions. Lastly, uniqueness, I'm gonna go with an 8. There's so many different ways to play the game, and there's also the possibility of mods too. I mean, entire games have literally been created on Arma's modded servers like PUBG, which we're also going to play later in this video. So if that's not unique, then I don't know what is. And so that averages out to a 7, but in terms of the fun scale and how much I loved this game, I would have given it a 10. So of course, I'm going to spend another day playing the game because, you know, I still have 25 days of this challenge left and I have nothing to worry about. So yeah, that happened. I told you I loved this game, I was not lying. I played Arma Reforger exclusively for the next 3 days after that, so 4 days total on one game, and when I wasn't playing Arma, I was editing Arma videos to be uploaded on the channel. I mean, the game entirely consumed me, and to be honest, I almost forgot about the challenge. But I was still determined to find the game that was better than Rainbow Six Siege, so on day 8, we loaded up the next game, Splitgate.
This is a bat? Wait, I didn't know you could have bats. So if that's the case, that changes everything. Come here, come here, come here. Oh, get out of here. Let me get another. Oh my God, I'm crazy. Let me regen. No, they're gonna hear me. They're gonna hear me. I'm so dead. Oh my God.
Splitgate was actually really fun. The thing that I loved most about it is that it was really simple and easy to pick up compared to some of these past games I've played like Valorant or Rivals, where you need to know all the heroes and what each of their abilities do, etc. This is just like a pure shooter, but with portals. So in terms of addictiveness, I'm gonna give it a 6, which I think is reasonable because I wanted to keep queuing up, but I was not gonna come back to this game when I was done because it felt like I'd already experienced the entire game just in one day. For logistics, I'll also give it a 6 because there were slow queue times and a few glitches like the kill cam being on a black screen and, you know, little things like that. And for uniqueness, I'll give it a 7, mostly because it's not doing nearly as much as other FPS games. It kind of took that winning formula and condensed it down into its most simple form and then added in portals on top of it. So that averages out to a 6.33, even though it was still fun despite the score, but I was ready for the next game to dive into. All right, it is officially day 9, and we are going to be trying out a game that is already considered to be one of the best FPS games ever, but I have never played it, and that is Destiny 2. I was super excited going into this because, like I said, this is a game that has already established itself, and I knew it was going to be good regardless, right? The game forces you to basically play the longest tutorial ever before you can unlock multiplayer. So I played for about an hour and a half and couldn't figure out why I hadn't unlocked it yet. And so my dumb thought you had to do the whole campaign first. So basically I played for over 7 hours before I realized I had PvP unlocked. But that's my own dumb fault, so we're not gonna deduct Destiny 2 for that. I split those 7 hours up into day 9 and day 10 and then got into multiplayer on day 11 and 12. And let's just say I was still not really having fun. Maybe it's just because I went in with high standards, but it was just all around not my kind of game. And it was impossible to play when I immediately was getting slammed by people who had probably been playing this game for 10 years compared to my, 10 hours. So subjectively, I did not like Destiny at all, but I gotta keep the rating as objective as I can. For addictiveness, I would give it a pretty average 6. For logistics, I was pretty disappointed with the loading screen times and the queue times. I mean, it took me as long as 5 minutes to find games occasionally. But lastly, in terms of uniqueness, I will give it an 8. I haven't ever played a game that was set up in the way Destiny was, and although I didn't love the single player missions that were required before playing multiplayer, I recognize that it's a pretty cool idea, and if it's for you, then it's for you. It just happened to not be for me. So for the average, that puts Destiny at a 6, which is very disappointing considering I spent a total of 4 days on this one game. I really thought it would eventually hit me, and I would realize that this game was a masterpiece, I would rate it an 8.5, and this challenge would be over. But it never ended up happening. And so we're gonna leave it at that, move on to day 13, where we will be trying another so-called legendary game that I have never played before, PUBG.
What's my dude doing with his feet? Can he stop doing that?
PUBG was a nice change of pace, and I see why it was so popular back in 2017. But with that being said, I also see why it was so popular in 2017. The game does feel outdated at this point and just felt like a less polished Warzone, which I personally liked because I always felt like Warzone just had too much going on, but that's beside the point. For the rating, I give the addictiveness a 6, only because it was a pain to play an entire 25-minute round just to get shot in the back and sent back to the lobby, but that's just Battle Royale games for you. For logistics, I'll also give it a 6 because I had really long queue times, and like I said, it feels like a game on an outdated engine, which it is, so, you know, it makes sense. And for uniqueness, we have to give it a big fat 10. Even though the Battle Royale genre is super oversaturated right now, we give it a 10 since it was basically the first game of its kind, more or less, so I think that's totally fair. That averages out to a 7.33, which is actually a lot higher than I thought. But overall, it was fun, and I even considered playing it again on day 14, but we were almost halfway done this challenge at this point, and so I decided to keep it moving to the next game, which is also a classic that I have never played, Titanfall 2. I was actually really impressed with Titanfall 2, much to my surprise, and I didn't get to play a bunch on day 14, so I did spend day 15 playing the game as well, but I really liked it. For addictiveness, I'll give it a pretty fair 7. For logistics, it was a bit buggy and it took multiple minutes to find games, so I'll give it a 5. And lastly, uniqueness, I gotta give it a 9. The gunplay wasn't all that special, but the actual Titans themselves were a super cool part of this game. So all around, that averages out to a 7, which is really good, but it's not an 8. And we are now officially halfway done this challenge, so it was time to bust out the big guns and try out Overwatch. It's day 16, and to be honest, Overwatch just kind of felt like Marvel Rivals and all the other hero shooter games that I had already played. So I was definitely burnt out of this style of game, but if I played Overwatch before the others, then I probably wouldn't have felt that way, so I still gotta remember to keep it objective. It was fun, but when I was done playing on day 16, I was done and I was ready to move on. For addictiveness, I'd give it a 5. For logistics, it seemed like it was doing pretty well in my small sample size of playing, aside from some longer queue times, so I'll give it a 7. Lastly, for uniqueness, since Overwatch was technically the first mainstream hero shooter game, we'll give it a 10 since so many games are copying this exact style nowadays. That averages out to a 7.33, which is definitely fair for Overwatch, but we still have not broken that 8 threshold yet, and I was starting to get desperate. So over the next 8 days, I tried out multiple games, starting out with Enlisted, which was just an all-around nightmare of a game and waste of a day. Then we moved on to Battlefront 2, and it was fun, but I wasn't really feeling it. We played Hell Let Loose for 2 days, which was so much fun, but it was kind of like an Arma Reforger carbon copy in terms of gameplay. Next, we tried out Rogue Company, which I had played in the past, and it was actually decently fun. I even played it for 2 consecutive days, but it just felt really bland. Okay, we're really running out of time here. At this point in the challenge, I was actually missing Siege and all of the uniqueness and strategy and content that Siege had. Maybe we're just a little bit too hard on Siege, just maybe. I even tried Fortnite Ballistic, which was literally just a worst Valorant, and even Deep Rock Galactic, which isn't even a PvP shooter, but that didn't last very long when I realized it was massive spiders I was fighting. So on day 25, I had still not found a game that was better than Rainbow Six Siege, but I was determined at this point in the challenge. I had 2 more games in my back pocket just in case I needed them, and it looked like I was going to. With 5 days remaining, I reinstalled a game that might be dying just as hard as Siege is, Apex Legends. This was not my first time on Apex, to be transparent. I had grinded it out way back in the day, but I I knew I needed something great to beat Siege because nothing has been cutting it up to this point. I played Apex for 2 full days and thought long and hard about my rating. For addictiveness, I'll give it a 7. For logistics, a perfect 10. And lastly, uniqueness, I'll give it a 7. The only problem is that it averages out to an 8, which perfectly ties Rainbow's score and means this challenge wasn't over yet. On day 27, it was only fitting that I had one final game in mind, the finals. This was it. If I didn't cross the 8 threshold on the finals, I probably didn't have any other games that were worthwhile in store. So the pressure is on. I played the finals when it was big last year at launch, but I hadn't touched it since. I remembered it being great and I hadn't played it yet in this challenge, mostly because I did play it within the last year or so, which I would consider to be recent, so that sort of bends the rules of this challenge, but at this point, I think this is our last chance. So, just like Apex, I played the finals for 2 days straight until day 29 rolled around, and it was time to contemplate the score. It's fun, it's fast-paced, it's super different and super well polished. So will this be the game to dethrone Siege and score higher than an 8? An 8.33 average and an absolute buzzer beater, but we have completed the challenge and found a game that scored higher than Rainbow Six Siege. The finals is the winner of this video. I did not think this would take 29 days to do, to be honest with you, but I think this just makes you realize how much better Siege really is than we give it credit for. I had a blast recording this video. Let me know what games I should have tried and what ratings you disagree with down in the comments. Subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.